Hello everyone. This is Hermenutics and Interpretative Traditions Part 2. In early part 1, I've already told you about field of hermeneutics, the science of hermeneutics and the contribution of various thinkers in hermeneutics. And in this video, I will tell you about interpretative tradition. Interpretative tradition, the approach to understand and interpret the meaningful structures in the society is called as an interpretative approach. And interpretative anthropology is a specific approach that was developed during the Cold War, and this approach belongs to sociocultural anthropology. It's a very practice oriented and it considers human act as a non-written text. Here culture is taken as text, that's a non-written, oral होते हैं. And interpretative approach focus on meaning and is based on assumption that reality can only be assessed through social constructions such as knowledge, language, consciousness and shared meanings. So here in interpretative approach it focus on meaning, understanding and interpretation, and here it is viewed that the reality can only be assessed through social constructions like language, consciousness and shared meaning. तो इन्हीं के द्वारा ही हम रियलिटी को जान सकते हैं, समझ सकते हैं. Interpretative encompasses diverse approaches including social constructivism, phenomenology and hermeneutics, and rejects the positivist approach, and it is associated with idealism. So interpretative tradition like hermeneutics rejects the positivist approach of natural sciences that is based on law of cause and effect relationship. Clifford Geertz, and he was the scientist or anthropologist who gave the idea of interpretative anthropology, and this was the new method in anthropology to understand the society or to interpret the natives' viewpoint. And he developed this perspective as a critique of objective and positivist approach, and the credit to interpretative approach in anthropological studies goes to Clifford Geertz, and this approach views that anthropology should make a distance from research methods which are used in natural sciences. He was strongly influenced by the writings of philosophers such as Langer, Ryle, Wittgenstein, Heidegger, Ricoeur, and Weber. An interpretative approach is used to understand what people are up to and what prevents us from grasping what people are up to. Geertz mean by imaginative universe, meaning content people experience. Interpretative anthropology is defined as a theory which illustrates that culture does not exist beyond the individual, rather it lies in the interpretation of events around that specific individual. So interpretative anthropology lies in the interpretation, and that interpretation always around a specific individual. Various events, cultural activities, society which are related to an individual, and so interpretation is always around the specific individual. And interpretative anthropology is very similar in its approach to Victor Turner's and David Schneider's symbolic anthropology, Stephen Tyler's cognitive anthropology, but it followed the knowledge that was developed in the field of linguistics, philosophy and literature. तो कह सकते हैं कि जो इंटरप्रेटेटिव एंथ्रोपोलॉजी है वो उसका जो अप्रोच है वो सिंबॉलिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी जो विक्टर टर्नर एंड से डेविड स्नीडर के द्वारा दी गई थी उससे बहुत मिलता है. स्टीवन टाइलर्स की जो कॉग्निटिव एंथ्रोपोलॉजी है, दिस अप्रोच ऑल्सो वेरी सिमिलर टू इंटरप्रेटेटिव एंथ्रोपोलॉजी. But the idea, the knowledge which was developed in the interpretive anthropology is taken from the field of linguistics, philosophy, and literature. As interpretive anthropology is influenced, means Clifford Geertz was very much influenced by the hermeneutics, the philosophy of hermeneutics. Geertz viewed that task of interpretive anthropology is to get some idea about how people abstract the reality and how they understand their life world, what they do or perform to know their world. सो व्हाट पीपल अंडरस्टैंड, हाउ दे अंडरस्टैंड देयर ओन वर्ड, इस पे डिपेंड, इसी के चारों ओर जो है इंटरप्रेटिव एंथ्रोपोलॉजी फोकस करता है. एंड ही वाज वेरी मच इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय गैडमर्स hermeneutical approach. William Death and Hans Gadmer belong to Geertz interpretative and genealogy. Levi-Strauss and Geertz share same genealogy of philosophy and literature. He introduced an epistemology, culture of text, a culture as text, and writing methodology, that is thick description, in writing ethnography and anthropology. According to him, first anthropologists understand the native's viewpoint with the help of active participation and know how the people interpret their own culture and practices, and then with the help of people's interpretation and own experience in the field, and anthropologists can interpret a culture. So this was a new idea in the field of anthropology by Clifford Geertz, and he gave the concept of thick description. He has taken culture as a text that is non-written. Here culture is non-written text, as was this idea was first given by Paul Ricoeur, and he followed this idea of culture as a text by Paul Ricoeur. एंड ही गेव द आइडिया ऑफ थिक डिस्क्रिप्शन. थिक डिस्क्रिप्शन यहाँ पर इन्होंने रैल से लिया था, ये थिक डिस्क्रिप्शन का जो कॉन्सेप्ट था, और इसको इन्होंने डिफ़ाइन किया कि जैसे फर्स्ट जो टास्क होता है एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट का, ये टू गेट द नेटिव्स व्यू पॉइंट, मीन्स नेटिव्स कैसा सोचते हैं अपने कल्चर एंड सोसाइटी के बारे में, वो अपने ट्रेडिशन के पीछे क्या मीनिंग्स लेकर चलते हैं, उसको जानना जो है एक इंटरप्रेटर का या एक एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट का बहुत ज़रूरी है. एंड देन विथ हिज ओन एक्सपीरियंसेस and along with the natives viewpoint, he can interpret the social phenomena, society and culture. According to Geertz, thick description is a product of interpretation. This means that the understanding conception to large extent it means to understand the pre-understanding, and Geertz borrowed the thick description from Gilbert Ryle to describe and define the aim of interpretative anthropology. According to him, culture consists of symbols that guide the community behavior. Culture and behavior cannot be studied separately because they are intertwined. एंड तो अकॉर्डिंग टू हिम जो कल्चर है वो सिम्बल से कंसिस्ट है जो कि कम्युनिटी बिहेवियर को गाइड करते हैं, एंड कल्चर बिहेवियर एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं, वो अलग अलग स्टडी नहीं किया सकते हैं. थिक डिस्क्रिप्शन is an interpretation of what the natives are thinking made by an outsider who cannot think like a native, was guided by the anthropological theory. He followed Paul Ricoeur, and he suggested that culture is a complex assemblage of texts that constitutes a web of meaning, and these meanings are understood by the natives themselves and are then interpreted by the anthropologist. He defined culture as a historically transmitted pattern of meaning embodied in the symbols. According to him, symbols are the vehicle of culture. उन्होंने सिम्बल्स को व्हीकल ऑफ कल्चर माना, जो कल्चर को जो है वो उन सिम्बल्स के थ्रू ही हम जान सकते हैं. किसी भी सोसाइटी या जो कल्चर के जो ट्रेड्स होते हैं वो वहाँ के सिम्बल्स के थ्रू हम जान सकते हैं. एंड डिफाइन कल्चर एज ए सिस्टम ऑफ पब्लिक मीनिंग एंड कोडेड इन द सिम्बल्स. Geertz was concerned with both how symbols transmit the meaning and how the individual interprets that same symbols. Culture is a system of inherited conceptions expressed in the symbolic forms, according to Geertz. In his books, he gave the idea of thick description, interpretative anthropology, and how people interpret their own culture. First book is Interpretation of Culture, Selected Essays. In this book, he stated that interpretative anthropology is a new method to get the ethnographic data and produce the ethnographic knowledge. And this book, he criticized the Levi-Strauss idea of taking the culture as a infernal culture. He in this book, in the book Structural Anthropology, Levi-Strauss, who defined, who gave the idea that generalizes the savage mind in all of us. In this way, he criticized Levi-Strauss that he created for himself an infernal cultural machine. In the second book, he gave the idea of local knowledge, and he said that local knowledge is different from local experience. Then third book is Deep Play Notes on the Berlin's Cockfight, and in this book he opined that in cockfight the cockfight's not a fight between the two cocks, it's a fight between the two groups of people जो अपनी वैल्यूज़ और अपने कल्चर के लिए किस तरह आपस में दो ग्रुप लड़ते हैं. ये कॉक फाइट इज़ अ सिंबल ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कल्चर. बैलिनीज कल्चर का वो सिंबल है कॉक फाइट, और यहाँ पर कॉक्स नहीं लड़ते हैं, दो ग्रुप के लोगों के बीच में जीत और हार के लिए लड़ाई होती है. और इसको उन्होंने अमेरिकन बेसबॉल ऑडियंस से इसको कंपेयर किया कि जैसा कि अमेरिका में जो है बॉल पार्क के पास लोग इकट्ठा हो जाते हैं ऑन गोल्फ रिंग एंड रेस राउंड पोकर टेबल, उसी तरह बाली के लोग भी कॉक रिंग में इकट्ठा होकर और जो है कॉक फाइट देखते हैं और लगता है कि यहाँ पर लोग लड़ रहे हैं. तो इस तरह उन्होंने उसको एक सिंबल के रूप में आइडेंटिफाई किया और इंटरप्रेट किया. Thick description is an anthropological practice, and it explains in significant amount of detail the reasons behind every human action and behavior, and it suggests that anthropology is a process of interpretation. And Gill specified that anthropology is a form of science because it involves the thick description. Thick description is a product of interpretation, and he followed the Bayesian anthropology in order to guide his particular research methods. And he also taken account of German sociologist Max Weber as a reference to argue interpretative anthropology as a science. The books written by him are The Interpretation of Culture, selected essays. Second book is Myth, Symbol and Culture. The other one is Local Knowledge, further essays in interpretative anthropology. An essay that was very famous essay in form of book, that is Deep Play Notes on Balinese Cockfight. Conclusion. Anthropology, hermeneutics, psychology and linguistics, they share common interest in the phenomena of meaning and interpretation. So all of these share a common interest, that is they focused on meaning and interpretation of culture, language and society. In this way, the hermeneutics is of the direct relevance to anthropology, and today hermeneutics is used for empirical findings and subjective understanding of the social phenomena. Gadamer's view that understanding implies change in pre-understanding of the understander and is clearly of relevance of the anthropology. He suggested that a researcher should show great sincerity when learning about the world, द कल्चर, द सोसाइटी, लाइफ वर्ड के बारे में जब भी एक रिसर्चर लर्न करता है तो उसे बहुत ध्यान रखकर इन बातों का ध्यान देना चाहिए. और जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है वो हमेशा प्री अंडरस्टैंडिंग में चेंज लाती है. तो जो न्यू अंडरस्टैंडिंग्स होती हैं दे ऑलवेज change the early understanding of the understander, and the pre-understanding always जो है किसी भी रिसर्चर या अंडरस्टैंडर के पास हमेशा प्री अंडरस्टैंडिंग होती है ऑफ देयर ओन कल्चर सोसाइटी. Researchers should use the interpretive method and methods to study the meaning, content, structure of society and culture. And Gadamer views suggests that re-study of culture would not be just the purpose of copying the early study or studying to study the changing society, but it should be for the improvement in interpretation and methodology of data collection. तो गैडमर व्यूड दैट द री स्टडी जो कल्चर या सोसाइटी की एंथ्रोपोलॉजी री स्टडी करते मीन्स अर्ली एक स्टडी की जा चुकी थी किसी भी एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट के द्वारा और फिर से रिसर्चर उसकी री स्टडी करता है. तो री स्टडी जो है वो जस्ट कॉपी नहीं करना है अर्ली स्टडी को या चेंजिंग सोसाइटी एंड कल्चर को स्टडी करना ही नहीं होता, बल्कि ये इम्प्रूवमेंट होता है इन इंटरप्रिटेशन एंड मेथोलॉजी जो चेंज होता रहता है. तो लगातार चेंज होने की वजह से हमको एक नई मेथोलॉजी और नए इंटरप्रिटेशंस को लाना चाहिए अपनी स्टडीज़ में, और इसीलिए इस पे उन्होंने बल दिया री स्टडी पर. Isidora Gate suggested that anthropologists can interpret a culture with the help of people's own interpretation. That was described by him as a thick description. And Geertz used hermeneutics in his studies of symbols and to understand the way that people understand and they act in the economic, socio-religious context. The role of anthropologists is to try to signify the importance of symbols from a specific culture, and language plays a very important role in understanding our existence in the world and also in the interpretation of the thoughts and ideas. Art, history, language play an important role in understanding and interpretation of culture. So he said that language, art, history, culture, uh, art, history, and language, these play a very important role in understanding our own society, culture, and to know about the meaning that lies in these social or cultural structures or in our life world. So with this, I end this video. I conclude this video and meet you in next video that will be of symbolic anthropology. Thank you very much.